The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. And today we're going to talk about opportunities for the next generation of MSPs. We're entering into a brand new year. 2025 is fresh. We have a clean slate, and there's a lot of opportunity for each and every one of us to take it to the next level. And so today I have a special guest. I have Brian Doyle with vCIO Toolbox. We'll go ahead and bring Brian in. How you doing today, Brian?
Great, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here, and Happy New Year, my friend.
Yes, Happy New Year back to you, right? It's another one in the books. It's amazing how fast they go.
It is. It seems like just yesterday that we were kicking off the beginning of 2024. We are now in 2025, and the thing that is always refreshing is that we can get back to the basics. We can start fresh. We can launch new strategies, and it's critical for us because complacency is not good, and we have to ensure that we are addressing the changes in the market, addressing the changes that our clients are looking for, because otherwise we just become a commodity, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Everything changes, right? This is technology. Things are very cyclical. What's old becomes new again. It's amazing how we see different things, within technology, but there are certain facets of it that never go out of style, like security, right? I mean, we will be having security conversations as long as there's PCs that are plugged in, and but what does that conversation look like? How is it being brought to the market? That's what changes yearly, right? The threats become bigger, and the tools to safeguard against them become larger in scope, right?
Yeah, and I think too, our clients have higher and higher expectations as far as what we deliver for them, and they truly are understanding that technology, while it's not their business in most cases, it is a critical aspect that helps them to excel and propel in their business, and allowing them to be is the best they can possibly be for their clients, whatever their products and services are.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So one of the things that, I want to jump into is, a best-in-class MSP. And what does that look like? How do they separate themselves from the pack? Because as we've stated, complacency will kill. And, without making those changes and truly, being exceptional, we are that commodity that we don't want to become. So, what are you seeing as far as those best-in-class MSPs, and what's separating them from the competition?
And I think first let's level set on the best in class concept, right? Obviously, we have MSPs at different tiers of their growth journey, right? The under a millions, the $1 million to $5 million, which have a different set of needs. Then, as you start getting past $5 million, you start really getting depth where you can attack things a little bit differently. But when I look at best in class MSPs, what I look at are ones that are thinking innovatively, that are going beyond just service delivery and thinking about client requirements and client guidance as part of their conversation set as well. And they're really keeping an eye on how they can expand those existing relationships a little bit deeper. And I'm not just saying from a services perspective, but I'm saying getting more strategic with those customers, understanding how they really operate, and then taking those learnings to see how they can 10x that by finding more companies that are similar to that, that makeup of the ones they're serving well. So, we're going to use kind of best in class as at each tier of the growth, there might be different resources that are carrying the water as they're trying to do this work, but really that they're going beyond just, refining service delivery, which is always kind of the first, pillar that we have to put in the ground, but then building off of that and thinking early about how to really manage the customer relationship from a people perspective as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so much has changed, and obviously, there is that mindset that, when you take a look at what we do, we're, just keep technology running, yeah, that's, I guess a basic fact of what we do. But more importantly, how we truly help our clients leverage that technology so that they can deliver, a best in class product or service themselves. Um, and part of how we do this is through those conversations, with the leadership team. And so I guess, when we take a look at the office of the vCIO, um, what does that concept look like today, and where does it need to go?
Yeah, so the Office of vCIO is a principle that we kind of coined here at vCIO Toolbox as being a joint approach to account management, right?
Okay.
So when we talk about the customer on the other side of the fence today, one, they're much more educated than where you and I started, Dan, 20 years ago, where a lot of it was still helping educate the customer to the why. Hey, you need these systems to do X. We now have digital natives, people that have had technology in their hands since they were kids, taking on the roles of managers. And they're thinking more about innovation, expansion, move faster, how to do more with less, how to automate, right? How to leverage AI technologies into their
Yeah.
business. And for us to do that, you can't rely on just this concept of one person being the client advocate within your organization to answer all those questions. There's kind of been this misnomer over the years where the vCIO role has morphed into one, an account management role, which has a way too much direct selling involved in it. And look,
Sure.
the outcomes need to be more revenue for us, right? We have to, when we're doing a business review, we have to get something back for the time that we're investing, but there's a consultative approach to it. So enter in the Office of vCIO. When we really looked at how these touch points have to be made, you have to look at all the areas your customer engages within the business and make sure that those people in those seats understand what their responsibility is, not to just serving the customer from a service layer, but serving the customer from a relationship growth layer as well. So when you think about it, the vCIO themselves is the quarterback, right? They are meant to be the advocate that drives the customer relationship. They're getting feedback from the customer, bringing it back into their office, and hopefully making any changes that the customer is requesting or sharing any positive feedback as well. And in doing that, they're driving that consultative process where they're working with the customer to understand their strategic initiatives beyond IT. What are the key objectives they're going after and the obstacles in the way of overall success? And then communicating that internally so we now know what project services might need to fill the bill and what security measures we might take to lock the doors better for that customer and make them feel comfortable about what they're, the data sets they have and how they're protecting them. And then really make sure that we're moving the customer forward, right? So it hinges
Yeah.
off the vCIO, but then this concept of Office vCIO brings others into the mix too. And it's modeled after the Office of CIO that, any of you that have been in the enterprise space know. Those are collections of project managers and program managers that are really driving different initiatives within the organization, but they borrow technologists from various groups within inside the enterprise
Right.
to then deliver on those services. And we kind of want to model it the same way, just knowing our group is a little bit smaller and we're going to have one voice moving out to the customer. But I'll stop there for a moment before we get into the other roles.
Yeah, and I think too, when you take a look at the touch points, I mean, there are multiple people within our organizations that have a touch point with the client, but there's also these nuggets of information that pop up over a period of time, and it's critical that that information is properly documented and addressed during some type of a meeting with the group. And so, how do you best ensure that something doesn't get swept under the rug, lost in the cracks, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. So when I look at it, when it comes to things that are occurring, all of a sudden the organization needs to get very flat. There's no hierarchy. The lowest person on the totem pole in your organization should be able to raise their hand and say there's a problem and be listened to as
Yeah.
soon as it happens. And I say that because the most contact between you and your customer happens at probably your lowest cost resource, your help desk, right? They
Right.
constantly are calling into that help desk, contacting the help desk and looking for support from those resources. In doing that, those folks are really learning a lot about the problems that are upcoming there. And we need to train those help desk operators that not only are they there to fix the technical problems, but they're to make the team aware. Go to your vCIO counterpart for that, that client or whoever that lead is for that client, and let them know when you're getting feedback that might be questionable so you can get out in front of it before it's a bigger problem. So, right from that point there, we start at the help desk. That resource is involved. Then you move into your engineering team, and they have a critical component of this, this as well. In most cases, we're doing a gap assessment, or if we're doing vCISO work, a security assessment. And from those gaps, we're identifying where the areas of need are, and we're putting together projects there. Problem is, a lot of engineers, and when they're tasked with doing the business review, feel like it's penalty box work, right? And they feel like they're getting it because they're not fully utilized. We got to help them understand that, I call it the circle of life conversation. Everything hinges off of you. If you're not doing that gap assessment, we can't identify if we're missing contract considerations that we can be called to the carpet on. And certainly where you don't know if we're missing opportunities that could translate into sales. And when you find those sales opportunities, we're then able to take it to the customer to generate new revenue. That new revenue comes back into the business in the form of those sales. And that continues to help us grow, get you additional resources when you're feeling stretched, or continue signing the paychecks that you're getting today, right? Because we got to maintain the existing client base, or we might have to downsize, and we don't want to go there. Now, I'm not saying you got to be that prescriptive in the conversation with the customer, but the engineers, but you got to let them know those business reviews are vital to the growth of the organization, and it comes back to you in the form of continued salary, bonuses, or whatever the case may be. But help them understand that they're a key component of that. This isn't penalty box work. It's actually high functioning critical work to go through that process.
Right.
So that gets the engineering team on board. Then it comes back to the vCIO to start doing the presentation work. But then we go beyond that. In this day and age, where does the vCISO work come into play? And we'll get into the new revenue opportunities, I'm sure, before we're done here. But now it goes beyond just doing the day-to-day operations report out so we can demonstrate our value, which is what the QBR was originally intended to do. But now we got to start thinking about cybersecurity requirements, not just from a protection standpoint, but think about cyber liability. Most of what's driving framework assessments today is not regulations. Those companies have been doing audit prep for years. But now they're coming to the MSPs saying, I got to make sure I'm cyber insurable. I want to lower my rates. Or more importantly, I want to make sure that I'm going to get my claim paid. And we're not going to have carve outs because we're not being totally accurate, not with malice, but not fully accurate. And what we're applying, putting into our applications. And this is a huge opportunity for the MSP to expand their relationship. But it's also something your customer already thinks you're somewhat doing. Right? They think when they hire an MSP, you're taking care of everything. And we know we're not. We got to make sure we're also that vCIO is letting the customer know where the fence ends, if you will, and where out of scope begins.
Well, a couple of things that I took note of as we're talking here. One, I think there's culture is such a critical component of this, right? Because like you said, someone that might be on the help desk side, they might view themselves as a insignificant role, but they are, a vitally significant person, right? And, and I think, from a cultural perspective, helping everyone to understand that, it's just this team approach, but also the difference between knowing, what those little nuggets of information need to be addressed now or can be addressed later, and that something could be brought up that is critical, and it is their ability to identify what needs to be shared can make or break a situation. Because the last thing we want to do is be sitting down for any kind of technology business review, and and there's comments made that hey, I addressed this. I remember when we called in, or so and so had called in and talked to Dave on the help desk, we addressed this with them, and then you find out Dave knew about it but didn't share that information.
And we got to operate at a higher level with our customers as well, right? So one of the bigger risks for us now is, let's go back to that cyber liability piece. Something happens in the client environment and they don't remember that you positioned that firewall with them a year and a half ago, that they said no to, and they
Right.
didn't, and now has become the point of vulnerability and has been exploited, right? Now their insurance company is going to go, great, you're working with an MSP. Let's go after those guys and see if it's really their problem, right? And now the onus is on you to prove that you actually did the work you did. And if you don't have good record of this, if you haven't come up with a process to get that, think about the employee that might already be gone. Now you're searching their email looking for a silver bullet. How do you do that? So you've also got to, look at your vCIO as being a leadership partner back to your client in this office of vCIO as well, and telling them things like, when you accept the risk, when you say that the juice isn't worth the squeeze and we're not going to move forward with that project, we're going to need to get sign off from you and be able to get that sign off. So you've got that history of when it was declined, right? Because you're going to need that potentially someday.
Yeah.
And that's something that folks have been resistant to because they don't want to push the buttons of the customer in the relationship, but really it's a two-way street, and you've got to be building these programs. And when you're introducing them, going through that, I'll close off on the concept of Office vCIO as a team approach. We've talked about help desk touches, engineer touches, certainly the vCIO being the quarterback, and bringing in vCISO or security components to it as well. But there's the executive layer as well. Ultimately, the buck has to stop somewhere. When there's conflict between the vCIO and the engineer or help desk teams, where the perception is the vCIO is asking for too much for free, with on behalf of being the advocate to the customer, somebody needs to step in on that. If the customer is getting to the point where there was a problem and they're getting visibly agitated by it, and they're looking for a higher level of resolution, could include potentially a credit or something like that, right? Your vCIO might not be empowered to issue that, and your executive team needs to step in. And your executive team needs to also understand at that point, the executive leader or executive sponsor of the office of the vCIO program, just depending on the size of your org, that they're there to be the final step. The buck stops with them. They have to have the ability to make decisions, the hard ones that might maintain a customer relationship long term.
Yeah, let's shift a little bit to the revenue side. Every MSP is looking to drive more revenue, higher profitability into their organization. And I think often, we're looking for new opportunities when we need to make sure that we've done everything we possibly can with the existing opportunities that, we have in front of us, our existing clients. So when you take a look at revenue growth opportunities, what would you say, for an MSP are some of the things that they need to look at as far as expanding their advisory offering to their clients?
So the most obvious one, right, is around security. MSPs have been investing into building out their security stack and implementing those security stacks with their customers to do better protection. But there's a whole oversight and governance layer that's available to you as well. So whether you want to call it a compliance as a service program or a governance as a service program, MSPs have a huge MRR opportunity to really step in there and be that chief information security officer, working with the customers to build policy, review policy, and make sure that those policies are getting reviewed at the intervals that are required either by insurance or regulation, right? Then making sure that the tech stack is bringing in the information they need to serve as the evidence for any framework assessments that need to be done. Then, obviously we can't be the auditors as the MSP, but we can help in building out those audits as well. So really, that's a huge area that we're seeing growth. Certainly our Cybrance platform here at vCIO Toolbox supports it, but that is probably the biggest place you can get more MRR for your MSP. But we'll get into some other areas. It looks like you might have a question for me, Dan.
Yeah. So what, when you take a look at an MSP that doesn't have that skill set on staff, how did they approach this?
So there's a lot of people that want to play in that realm, but don't have the resources, as you just said. And there are also a lot of independent consultants or MSSPs that don't want the business that your MSP does. So, really, this is a perfect time to partner with somebody who has that skill set that can really do the job well, that you can still maintain and make margin from. At vCIO Toolbox, we have a number of authorized, vetted security professionals that can handle the compliance and governance work that we can introduce to our clients to fill that gap and know fully that these are not competitive relationships. They want them to be symbiotic. They don't want the help desk, right?
Yeah.
And these are, now you're buying basically a fractional resource to help you deliver a full service with the customer, and they understand the tools you use and they understand the approach model of your group, and you can really expand on that.
I mean, it's a significant way to be able to take your MSP to the next level, right? I mean, let's face it, we all, we have to stay in our own lanes. We have to understand, what is our core strengths. But that doesn't mean that we walk away from being able to provide additional services. It's leveraging our resources and partnering with others that allow us, to take that business to the next level.
And I think, it's also making sure you're not exposed too, right? If you
Yeah.
leave that
Yeah.
gap untouched because you don't have the skill set to do it, that's going to come out at some point, right? Whether it's through a
Right.
security incident or another MSP that might be sniffing around your territory, it's going to come out that you're not potentially answering all the needs of that customer. And that's going to be a tough thing to fight back too. And I think MSPs today have become more comfortable with outsourcing elements like that. Many have outsourced level one help desk, as you know. Many have
Yeah.
outsourced knock and sock type work, right? So now we're really just saying, take that specialty you don't have, make a relationship which embeds that person into your process, and then, drive that new revenue.
Yeah, because ultimately, at the end of the day, when we take a look at, let's say compliance as a service, governance as a service, you could either A, do nothing, B, you could attempt to do it yourself. Obviously there's risks there depending on, what we're talking about. But then C is the option of partnering and pulling somebody in that's an expert in that particular area. And, I mean, that only I'm trying to remember who said this, but there's that phrase that I think there's an analogy here of hire people smarter than you because it proves
Yeah.
that you're smarter than them, right? And I think the same thing is, leverage or partner with others, to be able to make your business, more powerful. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
No, and there's plenty of guys that don't want your business to do it, right?
Right.
There's a lot of, when I look at a lot of the security consultants we do work with, these are former FBI cybersecurity folks that don't want to build beyond maybe themselves or a couple small people, people in their organization doing true consultancy. They don't want the MSP work, but they
Yeah.
also need MSPs to partner with to help them find new opportunity, right?
Right. So as we wrap up our discussion here, I want to learn a little bit more about how vCIO Toolbox can help build out this program for MSPs.
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, Dan, from our previous conversations, we set out with vCIO Toolbox to be a unified account management and advisory platform, really allowing you to do all the consultative work in one place. Almost think of it as a PSA for your account relationship teams, because
Yeah.
we've got a lot of functionality within the platform. At its core, though, it'll help you drive your business reviews. Your business reviews are day-to-day operational and security views of your clients from the tools that you use to help them understand that they've been protected, right? And then we go a step further where we can now start building out full tried and true cybersecurity programs within our Cybrance GRC stack, where we've got framework assessments. We're able to drop information from those assessments into a risk register and really manage and prioritize risk and work jointly with the customer on that. Create, curate, and track policies right through the signatures from the employees and be able to bring that in as evidence back into the systems and manage vendor risk as well through our third-party assessment tools. So really coming in and building a full cybersecurity program where you're acting as the lead for the customer, doing that governance layer and making sure all the things happen, and then collaborating with the customer to get the work done, because some of that work does go back to them.
Excellent. And for those that are looking to kind of kick the tires, if you will, I know you guys have a free trial available, but you also have an incentive for MSPs right now. Can you share a little more information on that?
Yeah, we just launched our advanced policy manager, and that tool really allows you to help your customers craft and curate those policies, as I mentioned. It manages everything from approval workflow through signature at the end user, and we're able to track that compliance. This has become a critical component because, as you're doing cybersecurity or applying for cybersecurity insurance, they want to know those policies are being updated regularly. The regulatory bodies are starting to look at more detailed WISPs, so they know how to engage with the customer through those policies as well if something comes up. And really, our policy packs and our ability to track that workflow enables the MSP to create new lines of MRR. And our deal right now is we're giving it to the first 50 people that sign up for it at 50% off. So,
Nice.
we really want to engage those customers, get them out there doing that, and, make sure that we're generating new revenue on day one of 2025 in concert with you.
Awesome. And I have, of course, you can go to vCIOtoolbox.com to learn more. But if you're on the Everything MSP website, you can search for vCIO Toolbox and learn more information. Also, being able to reach out to Brian and his team directly from our site as well. Brian, as always, I enjoy our conversations and I appreciate your time. I want to wish you and the organization just incredible success in 2025. And I appreciate being able to work together with you.
Same thing, Dan. I think everything MSP does for the community and certainly for us as one of your partners as well, and look forward to seeing what 2025 looks like for you.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.